Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Stories That Inspire Us podcast. My name is Janice Malillo, your host, and today, of course, we are also simulcasting live on the Wisdom Audio app. So thank you to my current listeners. You know, every time that I've done a podcast, I am just so amazed at the connections and collaborations that come out of these podcasts and to connect with like-minded entrepreneurs. And with the Stories podcast, we all know that there's a story behind the story. But I want to welcome back to the Stories podcast, Amanda Love. Welcome. I'm so excited to continue this conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to continue with.
Awesome. So you were previously on the Stories podcast on June 20th, almost 3 months ago. Now, I can't believe, first of all, that 3 months has passed so quickly.
Yeah.
But, as we both briefly said to one another, like, oh boy, there's a lot been going on. And I just want to back it up just a little bit to our last discussion.
Yeah.
And I know that obviously you're a holistic wellness coach, but you're also your own podcast host on your podcast. So take us back to, just very briefly, because we need to get into the other discussion, your story of becoming a holistic health coach.
Yeah. So my story was I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia at 20 years old, and I just grew up sick, sinus infections, sore throats, you name it, I had it. And they didn't know what was going on. And eventually I turned 20 right out of high school. I did a personal training program, completed that, turned 20, and all of a sudden I just couldn't get out of bed. And I just went to the doctors, eventually found out I had fibromyalgia. And then it went the slippery slope of, okay, medications, physical therapy, acupuncture. And eventually I found a wellness chiropractor, and he said, you have food sensitivities, highs in his practice at a time, gluten sensitivity, soy sensitivity, egg sensitivity, and dairy sensitivity. And I was only 21 years old at that time. And that's been 11 years ago. That I'm 32 now. And that was one of the reasons I was like, I want to be into nutrition, was because I don't want people to struggle with their health. I don't want people to be in pain. I don't want you to be fatigued. And I think that's the thing. I think we have our society where it's like, okay, I have a headache, I'm in pain. Well, that's because I'm getting older. It's not because you're getting older. Something's going wrong in your body, and you need to get to the root cause of why you're dealing with that health condition.
And I'm so glad that you said it, getting to the root cause, because we all go through different things throughout our lives. And, I, of course, can relate to the gluten sensitivity. Happened to me much later in life, but nonetheless, I have a non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And Amanda, I know obviously how I certainly feel when I maybe ingested something. Now, of course, I'm more cognizant of that, that I didn't realize had gluten in it. And then I feel sick, and it is not a pleasant feeling. So I can't even imagine having fibromyalgia and everything that you're going through. It just, obviously amplified so much more. And I think the misconception specifically to fibromyalgia is, how bad can it be? But it can be pretty damn severe.
It's severe. Yeah, and that's the thing I think people don't realize is because you look normal, and I've never been overweight, so I just look normal, but it's not normal as a child to be sick every single 10 days. And then you add in hormones, then it pretty much takes your whole month out, right? And I never knew what it was like to not feel well. And I think it's not normal to be in excruciating pain which didn't start till I was 20. But and headaches, fatigue, extreme fatigue, brain fog, that's not normal. And if you're dealing with that constantly, 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 every single day, it's exhausting and it wears you down.
And I think, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, that unfortunately for you, it was a bad kind of normal until you really, had the forthwith to really look into this further. But now we're going to bring it full circle.
Yeah.
So obviously our prior discussion, and as I said, I know, these past couple months, I know for many people have just been like, what the heck is going on? And unfortunately,
Yeah.
things have been happening with you. Would you like to kind of fill us in on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share because I love talking about what's been going on in my life. Yeah, like 3 months ago, it's been about right. So I just felt like, okay, this has been quite a journey this year. And I actually real at one point I was like, okay, what is going on? I actually met someone at a networking event, and it was instant connection and stuff like that. And it was a whirlwind of 11 days, but I realized this isn't the right person for me and stuff like that. And but I feel like that's the thing when we have people in our life, even if it's for a short while, is to teach us some sort of lesson in life. And
Mhm.
that lesson was that I had a guy friend, and the guy friend had been my first friend here in Austin. I've been here for 13 months, and I had him for 10 months. And he was just, I realized, okay, this friend is not a good influence. He's toxic. He's so worried about life, and he's not saying the nicest things about me. And I realized, oh, he has a nice house, he has a nice car, but he's still never happy. And you can't have those friends around. And I really believe one of the reasons I dated the guy that I dated was because the guy I dated was so positive and stuff like that, even though he had less, right, than the friend. And I think
Mhm.
that's the thing. Sometimes there's lessons in that. Even though it was pretty hard, I spent like it took me a while to real be like, why are you taking this guy that I'm dating out of my life? But I realized, okay, there's a reason for it. And the friend, as soon as I felt this let go of the friendship, I felt like this inner peace of like, okay, I don't have to listen to his problems. I don't have to listen to what he's going on. And and I think when you're around toxic people, it starts to rub off on you. And I'm not a toxic person, but I think it did affect me a little bit. And I think that's one of the things I've learned. And this just happened in like July.
And that is an important lesson to learn, but even I think more important than that is that you realize that this person was not for you, and to recognize that you essentially had to protect your energy.
Yeah, and I think that's the truth too, is learning to protect my energy and putting in people who are positive and who can bring me up and stuff like that. And now I'm actually dating a credible guy, so that's the story in itself. So you don't you don't know why people are getting taken away until maybe months later or even a month or two later.
That is so true. And there's really a lesson to be learned in that, because, there's going to be many people in our lives that, come along our way that are good influences, that are bad influences. And obviously, we always hope that we have more positive influences. That, I think, especially is very difficult, I think more so for your generation than it was for mine.
Yeah.
Because, cell phones didn't come out until, I want to say my son was about 2 years old or so. So that was like 89 or 90.
Yeah.
So just think of, from 1990, let's say, to where we are today, and how technology has evolved. So have our communications have evolved. And with all of that, we have to protect our energy.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that a little bit because I feel like that's the thing with communication and stuff like that. And we have to protect our energy, but we also need to know how do people communicate, and
Mhm.
that's the big thing. With the guy I was dating in July, it was just like communication was good, and then it just got really bad. And I think my generation doesn't know how to communicate sometimes about, okay, what is plans, like what time are we meeting up, like is this actually happening, right? And that's one of the things I was attracted to this guy I'm dating now, is in the fact where he was like, okay, what is your communication style? Do you like texting? Are you good at texting? Are you good at phone calls? And we're both on the same page with that. And that's really impressive to me. And just in the fact that it's like, okay, he asked that question, which the other guy never asked. And I think that's the thing too. We really need to know people's communication style.
Oh my gosh. Now, I think that is wowzers. Think about that for a moment.
Hmm.
Back when I was dating, it was, the guy would call the girl up on the phone.
Yeah.
And of course, I always say I never had a second date because I had two older brothers, and we'll just leave it at that because,
Hmm.
that's the way it was.
Yeah.
But the styles of communication are different. And because we are fast evolving through this digital era, text messages, voicemail, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook message, like there's so many different ways to communicate. And yet maybe such a simple question, but a very important one.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too. I think when we ask these important questions and it's simple, but it's so powerful to know, like, okay, this person's gonna call me at 7 o'clock. Like, I'm not doubtful of that. And that's the thing too. And I think when you're interested in someone, you should ask, okay, what is their communication style? And let the guy be the pursuer. I tell people. That's the other thing where I'm like, that's very attractive. He's told me several times. He's like, I want to be the pursuer in this. I want to be the leader in this. And as women, we are told, oh, we have to ask the guy out. We have to do that. No, if a guy is interested in you, he's going to ask you out.
You know what? I couldn't agree with you more. And I'll tell you just a quick side story.
Yeah.
When I met my husband 10, 12 years ago,
Hmm.
I was divorced for about a year and a half on my own. And the weird thing was neither one of us were going to be at this specific place that evening. We both
Yeah.
didn't want to go out. My cousin's band was playing at this place. I reluctantly went, but had a great time, of course. And obviously met my husband there. And, Dan's had a great time. We had an instant connection. We exchanged phone numbers. And I always tell this story. And he said to me, hey, if you want to go out, call me. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. If
Yeah.
you want to date me, you call me. I'm just from the old school. So I'm
Mhm.
so glad to hear that that is what transpired for you. That's so
Uh,
important.
yeah, so I have the same type of story where um so I there's a podcast and it's called Heart of Dating, and it's a Christian single podcast, and they have a huge Facebook group, and then they have a Texas group. And so this Texas group when it made said, "Oh, we should meet up in June." Never happened. And July came and it never happened. Eventually they set it up for August. And I think it's really interesting because I was dating this guy at that time, so I wouldn't have been able to go to it. He was sort of dating a couple people, but just like a few dates and stuff like that. And it's funny because we started, and I didn't really like get over the guy till a week or two before, right? And it's interesting in the fact that okay, it was exactly the week it was supposed to be. I really truly believe that. I went to a conference like the week before, and he commented on it because we had a group chat. So I added everyone from Facebook because I knew I was going to meet them in 2 days. He didn't respond back after I commented back from that picture. Also the fact that he is in this membership thing with my friend Miranda, and he asked her, he's like, well, do you know anyone from the membership? And she's like, was gonna actually mention me, but she never got back to responding to his question and stuff like that. And it's just interesting in the fact that we ended up meeting, and there was a girl between us, and the conversation was fine and stuff like that, but nothing happened there. And then later on in the afternoon, everybody, people started to leave, but there were still some of us staying. And I walked over to this one guy, started talking to him, and it was a flat conversation, nothing right. So I turned to my left and I started talking to him, and we couldn't stop talking to each other. We didn't notice anyone at all and from the group. I had a friend get up and she started dancing, and we like barely looked over, and we at the end of it we were like didn't want to leave. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So there's a budding romance going on.
Yeah, it's it's crazy, and we and it's interesting because we're so similar in everything, like interests, values, what we want in life. And we had a phone call last week. He doesn't live in the same city. Um, and it was almost 5 hours. And we're having our second phone call tonight. But we can't stop texting each other either.
Whoa.
And it's only been like 9 days. So
Well, hmm, that
yeah,
sounds pretty, that
yeah,
sounds pretty darn awesome.
yeah.
What would you say, what would you say to a young lady who's kind of in your shoes as well, as far as that goes, and they want to meet the right person? Sometimes we don't know who the right person is, but we want to go out and have a good time and meet people and enjoy ourselves. What would be one thing that you could share with them?
Yeah, I feel like for me, okay, I'll be honest. So the one thing I would share for them is don't force it. I think don't go on the dating apps. Don't do all of that. Um, I this is I haven't shared this on a podcast before, but like the guy I first dated in July was the first guy I've dated. I've never dated, I've never forced it. I always had a feeling, okay, God, you're going to bring me the right guy when the right time is. And I couldn't have been with a guy earlier this year because I had to go through some emotional healing I had to do. And I've healed from that. I had to let go of the friendships. I had a couple friendships I had to let go of.
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing. When the right guy comes, he's gonna blow you out of the water. Like he's really gonna, and that's what this guy is. Like he's a very incredible guy, very strong Christian, wants to be a children's pastor, loves kids, and those are some of my big things. And like I think the biggest thing is also to be, if you're into praying, praying for that specific person. I've been praying for this person for like a lot, especially this year. And I went into this event saying to God, "Oh, I want to be asked out. I feel like this is a good event." It was all Christian people. We were all in our 30s, which is not very common to find something like that. And the guy actually told me, he's like, "Oh, yeah, I told someone also that, oh, maybe I will meet someone at this event too." And he didn't just ask me out just to ask me out. He really felt like God was telling him to ask me out, and then it just came out. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
that personal side, because I think it's really important when someone is telling their stories to
Yeah.
relate it in such a way that honors their journey, but so that others can see, like, I mean, you didn't come out and say this, but don't settle for less.
Yeah. And that,
God will place that person in your path, maybe sometimes when you don't least expect it. And go ahead.
yeah, that's the thing too. And I think I could look back at the guy I was dating in July and I'm like, there were some red flags, right? Where you might start to overlook until there's one big red flag. And, but I think that's the big thing is like, that taught me, okay, I really want to be in a relationship. So it was good for me. I always knew I wanted to be in a relationship and dating and married, but it just amplified it even more. And so I think that's why one of the reasons why I was in that relationship, it wasn't a relationship, it was just dating. But that's, it shown me, okay, wow, it's way different with the guy I'm dating now. This guy's incredible. And we are very committed and we're very serious. So, like, this is the other thing I recommend to guys and women is don't just jump into a relationship to jump into a relationship. You don't
Mhm.
know, you need to know and trust them over time. So we have talked about this. We are taking 90 days to really get to know each other and stuff like that. But I can't see why it wouldn't be eventually a relationship.
I love that. You get to know each other. Almost, it's almost like, what did they call it in the older days? Like a courtship.
Yeah.
So you're getting to really know each other before maybe going out on a date, or just getting to know each other, which is so important. And I think a lot of times too, we put not maybe society as a whole doesn't put that into play the way, from my generation, from to your generation. Obviously things are totally different. But you also mentioned, and I'm just looking at my notes here real quick, I was scribbling, that there's always a lesson to learn. But I love what you said about no dating apps, and
Yeah.
I was guilty of that. And then it was more, and at some point before I met my now husband, it was just comical for me to be on it, just to, look at the different profiles. And, and I thought to myself, do I really want to meet someone through a dating app? Like, it just didn't it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel natural, I guess is what I'm saying. I guess it does work for some people, and that's great.
Yeah, and I think that was my thing too, where I was like, I don't want to meet someone through an app. And I think God knew that I kind of started probably talking to him a day or two before I met him, but God knew that I would want to actually meet him in person type of thing. And I think that's the thing where I think when we're on social media, we judge by looks and then it's not like, well, what about their personality? What's their spirituality? So I think that's the thing too, is like it's so much better to meet someone in person to know those things, right?
Exactly. Get to know one another and, you know, have that association with, whatever your likes or dislikes are. You get to find out so much more when you go through that process. I know for me, dating again in my 50s, I went on a couple dates before I met my husband,
Yeah.
and it's like, I don't want to do this. Like, no, I'm done. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that was that night when I met my husband, ironically. And I was like, no more. Okay, I'm done. But the point being, we we set ourselves up for, we put out our energy. How I'm not saying this the right way. We put out in the universe the energy that we should receive, where sometimes it's vice versa. Like if you wake up and say, I'm going to meet so and so at the mall, and they turn out to be a schmuck. Like, there's just so much around what we're putting out in the universe, the energy. Like if I say I'm going to have a bad day, guess what? I'm going to have a bad day. That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, where I was like, and I told a couple of people, I was like, well, can you pray that I actually meet someone at this event? I actually told them. I told like my aunt, and I told my friend Miranda, who actually went to the event with me. And the thing is, he actually thought he was going to talk with her and stuff, but he didn't talk with her at all at that event. And so it just shows the timing of everything is really the timing, right? We couldn't have met like any sooner, I feel like.
Well, right. As much as we want to meet that person,
Yeah.
depending on what type of a situation that we're in, we sometimes we're ready for it. Sometimes I guess we're not. And I think you're like this pint-sized gem. I think I put in one of my social media posts.
Oh,
You just have this amazing aura about you. Like, you're kind-hearted, you're soulful, you're real, you're authentic. So what guy would not be attracted to that? You have so much to offer. And I love the fact that you are sticking to the morals of what is right for you.
yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing as a woman is knowing your morals and knowing what you want in a guy. And I think that's the thing too, where I had a friend where he was like, well, you should just date any guy as long as they're want to be married, have kids, and are a Christian. And I'm like, no, I want more than that. And I said something to the guy I'm dating, and he's like, yeah, you know what you want and you know what your needs are, and that's a good thing. And that's the thing. I think as women, we sometimes we're like, oh, this guy is great. He has all these qualities. I have all these interests. And that's sort of what I thought with the guy in July. Like, we had a lot in common, but I was overlooking things and stuff, or I wasn't thinking as much. And now I could look back and be like, okay, why? I could have cut it off a little sooner, probably. And that's the thing, though. It doesn't,
Mhm.
it's all a lesson in our life.
It definitely is a lesson in our lives. So tell us how your podcast is doing. How is that going?
It's going good. And I love that people love learning about nutrition. I love that people are interested to getting better. I think that's the thing, too. We need to get better. We need our health to be better. We need to raise, like I talked to the guy I'm dating. It's very important that we raise healthy kids and stuff because kids are the next generation. And why I feel like we shouldn't have kids sick. Why was I so sick for 20 something years? Why did I have to go through that? And I think people think of sickness and it's always in our 50s, in our 60s, in our 70s. That's not true anymore. People are, every single person, I could probably tell you, I could probably talk to every single person and they'll say they are dealing with some health condition. I have a bunch of friends and they all have health stories. Why is that? We're only in our 30s. So yeah, like we need to raise healthy kids because we need to, their dreams need to happen. Everything needs to happen, right? And we
Mhm.
can't, we just need a healthy society too.
We sure do. Oh my gosh, Amanda. You know, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. I just think, like I said, you are just like this pint-sized gem. And I'm so happy for you that you are following your dreams, living them out through your entrepreneurship and doing what you love to do, through servicing your clients, um, providing so much value on your podcast and now in your personal life. I think that's amazing. So happy for you.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I hope definitely you will consider coming on again. We'll have to get another update to see, what transpires the next couple of months. You just never know. I hope you will definitely consider that.
Yeah, I would love to come back.
Wonderful. Thank you again so much for being here today. Your story just continues to inspire me, and I know it will definitely inspire others. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Hey, folks, I want to thank all of you for being here today. The stories that inspire us are usually those stories that are within us. And then we look outward, such as, starting the Stories podcast and meeting amazing people such as Amanda. Her story, like I said, will continue to inspire me. Know that your story is important. If you have a story to share, it needs to get out there. Thank you all so much. My name is Janice, the host of Stories That Inspire Us. Today, I was inspired yet again by the lovely pint-sized gem, Amanda Love. Thank you all so much, everyone. Have a great day.